No, so welcome to this webinar. So for today's activity, we have been invited to discuss about the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration. I know everybody knew already the POEA. Kung hindi man, so please take a seat, relax, and listen to the entire duration of my presentation. But before we proceed, I would like to introduce myself, of course. I'm Augusto B. Santiago III. I'm currently heading the Seabased Center of the POEA. Lahat po ng kontrata po ng ating pong mga marino ay dumadaan po sa amin, dumadaan po sa atin sa POEA. So dapat makilala nyo talaga kung sino po si POEA. May katanungan ako sa inyo. Why do Filipinos want to work abroad? Bakit nga ba? Bakit nga ba kayo nagnanais o karamihan sa ating pong mga manggagawa na mga Pilipino ay nagnanais na umalis sa ating bansa at magtrabaho abroad? No, marami tayong mga land-based workers at marami din tayong mga sea-based workers. And don't you know that around 5,000 to 6,000 overseas Filipino workers are leaving our country every day? No, ito po yung prior to the pandemic. Of course, no, dahil sa pandemic ay naapektuhan ang deployment natin. Pero bago nung nagkaroon ng pandemic ay mataas po ang ating pong numbers na mga Filipino na umaalis po ng ating bansa. But why? Bakit nga ba sila umaalis? At bakit nga ba kayo umaalis? Tignan lang natin, no? Sagutin natin ang mga tanungan na ito. I would wanted you to respond, yes or no, if this really your reason also of working overseas. The first one, no? I am presently unemployed. I cannot get a job here. Sa Tagalog, wala daw pong employment dito sa Pilipinas at hindi sila makahanap ng trabaho dito. Yan ba ang reason ninyo din? Kaya gusto nyo magseaman? No? Kaya nais nyo mag-abroad? Pangalawa, yung income is not enough for my family needs. Will that also be your reason for leaving or to be a seafarer? You want to send your children sibling to good schools? You want to have your own house? You want to have your own business as well? O in short, baka naiinggit lang naman tayo, no? Kaya tayo gusto ring mag-abroad. No, hindi po 'yun masama. No, yung kainggitan na 'yun is a motivation on our part to really strive harder to improve, no, yung ating pong pamumuhay. You want to help for the medical expenses of your sick family members. That also a reason why our workers, no, ang ating po mga OFWs ay umaalis dito sa ating. I have a relative friend working there. Definitely, no, lahat naman tayo may mga kamag-anak na mga nagtatrabaho abroad o mga nandoon na sa abroad. Either they are, citizens na doon, but they have started working on that particular country. You want to advance professionally, learn a new skill. You want, because, adventure daw. Yan ang ang kagandahan sa ating mga seafarer, no, adventure, and they will be going or traveling around the world and they will be seeing different places, and that will really be wonderful. Or you want to leave your spouse, partner, because you want to forget a traumatic experience, kaya ba nagbabalak kayo magseaman? Baka hindi naman po. No, tingnan natin. Number one, you want to escape the responsibility, no, from your family. Dahil ayaw nyo na makasama ang inyong pamilya, no, o dahil naaasar kayo sa miyembro ng pamilya ninyo, kaya kayo nagbabalak na rin na umalis. Ito rin ba ang reasons ninyo? Or you want as well to migrate permanently as the other overseas Filipino workers did? No? These questions ay batay din naman po yan sa ginawa naming survey noong araw. Na ito yung mga tinatanong natin sa mga umaattend sa PIDOS natin. No, at karamihan yan po yung sinasabi nila, no, na rason bakit po nila gustong mag-abroad. No, sa inyo, kung yan din naman po ang mga batayan ninyo o reasons niyo sa pag-abroad, let's try to consider further yung mga bagay na isisiwalat ko po sa inyo. In the considerations, no, of going overseas, you have to ask yourself, are you ready to leave your family? Handa ka bang iwan ang pamilya mo? Preparedness to temporarily leave your family behind. yung barangay Hinebra mo, no, sanay ka sa mga barkada mo, iiwan mo. No, baka yung mga pagiging tumador mo ay you can bring that in your work. Sana wag naman, no? So make an assessment if you are ready to leave behind your family and your friends or your relatives here. Appropriate qualification to fill in the positions you are applying for. Are you qualified? No, and when we talk about qualifications, we're not just talking here about your academic backgrounds, but we are talking here your competency, your experience, the trainings, no, your fitness, and the fitness doesn't only talk about your physical or medical fitness, but rather even your mental, emotional, even your, not just the IQ, but even the EQ. You all have to consider those. Are you ready to live in a foreign environment? Definitely. No, Philippines is different from the place or places that you will be going. So, will you be ready to accept the fact that you will have unfamiliar places that you will be? Are you ready to face the challenges and risks? Being a seafarer, mahirap po. As I've said, it's not a walk in the park. No, earlier, mahirap po ang trabaho, may kaakibat na panganib. No, the challenges and risks, and that you really have to be ready at all times. And are you ready for the expenses? Definitely. Now, when we talk about going overseas, madami po talaga tayong pagkakagastusan. No, mamaya pag-usapan po natin yung mga gastusin. But of course, no, umpisa pa lamang sinasabi ko na, no, bilang isang seafarer, kayo naman po ay hindi po dapat sinisingil ng inyo pong mga manning agencies ng placement fee. No, because our seafarers are exempted, no, from paying the placement fee. Even their medical fees dapat po libre yan, no, even the inoculations, yung kanilang mga RT-PCR, libre po yan. Yan po ay dapat hindi po sinasagot ng mga seafarer natin. But as I've said, despite of the expenses to be spent by your principals or your agency, there are also personal expenses that you will be handling. You have to be ready for that. Okay? And if you've said that you are all ready of these considerations, and I believe that being a seafarer is really a career option for you. Maliwanag po ba sa atin yon? Sa ating pong mga tagapakinig? I hope so. Okay? At this point, I would wanted to introduce to you the POEA. Ano nga ba ang POEA? Of course, POEA stands as Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, which is an attached agency of the Department of Labor and Employment tasked to oversee, regulate the outflow of Filipino workers for temporary employment overseas. It was created through a Presidential Decree number 797 in 1982 to manage the country's overseas employment program. No, yan po yung building namin. No, yung nakikita nyo po sa picture, that is the main office of the POEA. No, you are welcome to visit us, but of course not at this time. No, tayo po ay naka-quarantine, under ECQ po tayo. Start na po tong araw na ito, and definitely we do not like you to be exposed, no, of the possible virus. So siguro in the future, no, if you would wanted to visit the POE, you're all welcome. No, magpapasama po tayo kay Ma'am yung ating pong IMO ambassador, kay Ma'am Josie, no, magpasama po tayo para mag-tour po tayo, na dapat kasama sa ating seminar yung pagtutour, no, sa mga different offices para hindi po kayo maligaw later on, no, kung kailangan yung pumunta sa opisina po ng POEA. So that's the POEA. And I would wanted also to inform you about the mission and vision of the POEA. For its mission, excellence in governance for world-class Filipino migrant workers. No, napakaganda naman po ng mission ng ating pong POEA. And its vision, POEA connects to the world and in partnership with all stakeholders, facilitates the generation and preservation of decent jobs for Filipino migrant workers, promotes their protection, and advocates for their smooth integration in the Philippine society. So yan po yung ating pong mission and vision. As we have said a while ago, that POEA regulates the overseas employment program. And of course, the core functions of the POEA ay nahahati po yan, no, sa industry regulation, employment facilitation, and workers' protection. Isa-isahin po natin yan. Say industry regulation, ano po ba yung function or mandato ng POA ukol dito? Of course, the POA issues license to private recruitment agencies and ship manning companies to engage in overseas recruitment. Hears and arbitrates complaints and cases filed against recruitment and manning agencies, foreign principals and employers, and overseas workers for reported violations of the POA rules and regulations except for money claims. Kasi ibang ahensya po ang nakatalaga para makinig sa problema yan. So, as a core function, I just would wanted also to remind everybody na dapat, no, kung kayo po ay mag-a-apply, siguraduhin po ninyo na ang manning agency nyo po ay isang lisensyado. At para malaman po yan, dapat magtanong po tayo sa POEA. Maging matalino po tayo para makaiwas po tayo sa problema o makaiwas tayo sa problema na mabiktima ng illegal recruitment. For industry regulation, again, no, it implements a system of incentives and penalty for private sector participants, monitors overseas job advertisements on print, radio, television, and internet, sets minimum employment standards, as well as conduct agency education and agency performance evaluation. As for the employment facilitation, the POA accredits, registers foreign principals and employers hiring Filipino workers, approves manpower requests of foreign principals and employers, evaluates and processes employment contracts of OFWs, assists departing OFWs at the ports of exit, develop and monitor labor markets and conduct labor market research. Still, no, POA enters into and implements Memorandum of Understanding on the hiring of Filipino workers with labor-receiving countries, facilitates the deployment of workers hired through government-to-government arrangement, provides a system of workers registry, implements the government's program on anti-illegal recruitment and anti-trafficking campaign, including provisions of legal assistance to victims of illegal recruitment, and of course, conducts pre-employment orientation seminars to prospective OFWs nationwide. So that's the employment facilitation function or mandate. As to the core functions under the worker protection, the POA provides technical assistance in the drafting and forging of bilateral, regional, multilateral agreements, sets minimum employment standards, maintains a database of workers, networks with non-government organizations, workers' organizations, among others, provides repatriation assistance, and implements gender-sensitive program. So yan po yung mga core functions and mandates po ng POEA. And now, this is very important slide that everyone should know about the e-registration system. Ang e-registration system natin is an online system that you really have, or all of our seafarers has to get an e-reg number, because yung e-registration po natin na number will be your perpetual number as a seafarer, and we need that really to facilitate or process your employment contracts. So we need that particular e-registration number, and that you really have to go online to get that particular e-reg number. Okay, for this, the e-registration facility serves as a registration system for our land-based and sea-based workers applying for overseas employment, and allows the POEA to streamline procedures as well as improve transparency in the recruitment and the documentation of workers. So, as I've said, all applicants aspiring to be employed overseas, either through licensed recruitment agency and the manning agencies, or through GPB or the government placement branch po natin, yung G2G or government-to-government hiring po natin, are required to register to or through the e-registration facility of the POEA e-service portals. So how can you access that? Try to what? No? Go online, onlineservices.poa.gov.ph, or visit the POA website, www.poa.gov.ph. Makikita nyo po yan, yung ating pong e-registration system. Yung e-registration system po natin is just like opening an FB account, madali lamang po. But I would wanted to warn you, no? Why warn? Dahil marami na po tayong mga seaman, no, mga seafarer po natin na mali-mali, no, ang nilalagay po nilang information sa e-registration natin, no. Kayo po ay aking winawarningan na dapat wag niyo hong minamali o intentional, no, na bibigyan ng wrong information ang data po ninyo. Dahil yun po ay may kaakibat na parusa. Pwede ho namin kayong isama, no, sa mga watchlisted po natin ng mga seafarers kung kayo po ay mapapatunayan na intentional ang paggawa po ninyo ng maling pagbibigay ng maling impormasyon, no, ukol sa inyo pong e-registration. So again, please, no, when you do the e-registration, please make it sure that all of the informations are authentic, true, and all about you. No, madami pong kamalian sa birth date nila. Akala nila, no, na pag binago nila yung birth date nila, hindi mo namin makikita na mali po yung inyo pong isinubmit, no? O gusto niyo mapabata o gusto niyo linlangin ang inyo pong manning agencies, wag naman po, no? Dapat yung tama lamang po ang inilalagay natin para hindi po tayo magkaroon ng delay o magkaroon po tayo ng problema. Okay? For our statistics, no, from 2017 to 2019, makikita po natin, no, na increasing trend po ang deployment po ng Seabased natin. In 2019, which is prior to the pandemic, we have reached, no, around 507,730 deployed seafarers natin. But in 2020, no, it's a 57.22% decrease. 217,223 lang po ang ating pong napaalis, no. At alam po naman natin kung anong naging reason, no, because of the COVID-19, no, nagkaroon po ng mga border restrictions, nagkaroon po ng lockdown ang Pilipinas, no, para po maproteksyonan, no, ang atin din pong bansa. At ganoon din naman yung other countries, they would also wanted to protect as well their nationals and their country. But for this year, no, it seems, no, na nakakabawi na po tayo as of June ba itong data natin. As of June 2021, that's already 162,966. So mukhang mataas na, no? Malapit na po natin ma-surpass ang ating 2020 deployment. And unti-unti na naman po bumabalik ang ating cruise ship industry, no, sa pag-aalis o pangalap ng ating pong mga manggagawa. So I hope at the end of the year, masurpass natin yung 2020 deployment natin because we are seeing for an increasing trend. And of course, no, just to show you our top 10 flags of registry. Number 1 pa rin naman ang Panama, followed by the Marshall Islands, Liberia, Bahamas, Malta, Singapore, Cyprus, Netherlands, Italy, and Hong Kong. We're talking here data ng 2020 versus 2019. So makikita natin talaga yung decline, no, versus the 2019 versus the 2020. As to the top 10 skill, nangunguna pa rin naman dyan yung ating abled seaman, followed by ordinary seaman, oiler, bosun, chief cook, second mate, messman, third engineer, third mate, and wiper. Ito po yung mga top 10 skills natin sa ating mga marino, no? But of course, as I've said, no, makikita natin yung disparity between our 2019 and 2020 deployments. So there's a decreasing trend for that particular year. As to the top 10 vessels, of course, nangunguna pa rin ang ating bulk carrier. Passenger ay sumunod. Nandyan din naman yung container, yung ating oil tanker, chemical tanker, general cargo, gas tanker, pure car carrier, and the long lines. So yun po yung ating pong deployment top 10 vessels. It is also very important, guys, that we have to learn about the offices directly dealing with our seafarers. We have our Legal Assistance Division under the Accreditation. which is headed by Attorney Eric Doliete. Ano po ba ang naitutulong ng Legal Assistance Division? So they are the one providing free legal counseling services for our overseas Filipino workers. They also attend to the needs, legal counseling for the walk-in applicants relative to their concerns on overseas employment, especially those in relation to recruitment violations. They also provide referrals to appropriate POEA units and other government agencies for further assistance. So if in cases later on that you will be needing the assistance of our LAD, find attorney or look for Attorney Eric Doliete for assistance, or the group of Attorney Doliete. For the Operations and Surveillance Division, headed by Attorney Romelson E. Abang. So if the complaints concern illegal recruitment, especially when undertaken by those without license or authority, and illegal activities in progress, the matter is referred to the Operations and Surveillance Division for surveillance, entrapment, and possible closure of an establishment. We also have the Prosecution Division, which is headed by Attorney Geraldine C. Mendez. And of course, the most important, yung ating pong Assistance and Welfare Division and Conciliation Unit, which is headed by Charity M. Jacob, which the function of the AWD is very important for you guys, because they're the one undertaking the conciliation proceedings, wherein workers and recruitment agencies can have an expedient way to settle their disputes in accordance with the dual single entry approach, or the SENA. So kung kayo po may mga problema na tungkol sa inyo pong agency at dumulog po kayo sa labor sa ating pong LAD, yung Legal Assistance Division natin, at kung nakikita naman po nila na pwede pong makonciliate yan po ay forward nila sa AWD, para kayo po ay mag-conciliate, yung worker and demanding agency. At sana, pag nagko-conciliate, talagang there should be a way to really settle the disputes of both parties. And of course, repatriation unit assist in repatriating or bringing home distressed workers deployed by the licensed agency. And the Labor Assistance Center, which is headed by Mr. Joseph Jose, where the Labor Assistance Center is located sa ating pong mga airports. Meron pong representative ang POA po doon. So they provide an on-site assistance to departing workers at international airports. And of course, the most important that deals with the seafarers, because we are talking here with accreditation, contract processing, and documentation of seafarer. Yan po ay ang ating Pre-Employment Services Office, which is headed by my director, by my boss, Director Levinson C. Alcantara. Because the Seabased Employment Accreditation and Contracts Processing Center is under the PSO. And under the Seabased Center, which is, as I've said, I'm heading, we have two divisions, the Seabased Employment Contracts Processing Division, which is headed by Ms. Wilma Dizon, and the Seabased Employment Accreditation Division, headed by Ms. Marilu Candal. Of course, to further understand the Seabased Center, we have the core functions: the accreditation, registration of foreign principal employers, enrollment of vessels, and the documentation of seafarers. You know what? In as much as I would really wanted to go the nitty-gritty of things, we only have a limited time. So dapat bibilisan ko dapat, because I only have 30 to 35 minutes allotted for me to present about the POA. So bibilisan ko na po, you know what? Para mas maintindihan nyo po yung process flow, paano nga ba kayo nare-recruit, o paano ba ang isang ahensya dumadaan sa proseso bago siya makakalap o makakuha ng isang seafarer, na kanilang i-deploy, para sa kanila pong mga principal. Of course, it will start from the verification. Verification is being done by the Philippine Labor Office, or the Philippine Overseas Labor Office, or the POLO, headed by the Labor Attaché. Bakit nga ba? Why a particular document, particularly the manning agreement, the special power of attorney, and even the crew requirements of the principal has to go the verification process? Simple. because we would just wanted to ensure the safety and welfare of our workers, not just seafarers. Because in the verification process, the labor attaché guarantees that there is really the existence of a principal that can provide the essentials, at the same time, magbibigay ng sweldo, accommodations sa ating pong mga workers. So yun po yung kanila pong functions. And after that, no, after the verification process done by our polo, we have to accredit na yung principal. So yung principal, ipapadala niya sa agency nyo, at yung agency ay dadalhin na yan sa POEA, yung mga dokumento na yon and other documents for the registration, no, ng ating po mga principals, and at the same time yung vessel. Once we approve that, we'll be providing the required certificate that guarantees the manning agency that they can now start the recruitment and selection. And of course, in the recruitment and selection, no, dapat talagang masusing tinitignan ng ating pong mga licensed manning agencies na yung kinukuha po nila ay dapat qualified talaga, no, and pass through all the processes para hindi ho sila magkaroon ng problema. So a qualified seafarers, as I mentioned earlier, that we are not just talking here of your academic credentials, but rather it encompasses a lot of things, no, for you to be, qualified, no, or considered by your recruitment agencies to be a seafarer under the respective principals. No, pag kayo po ay napili na nila, nagpa-medical exam na din po kayo, you now start, or the agency or your licensed manning agencies will now offer you the contract. No? It's now the execution of contract. Dapat basahin nyo muna yan, o yung kontrata ini-explain muna sa inyo ng license agency, no, bago kayo pumirma. And when we talk about contract, no, it involves two parties. It's the agency which represents the principal and you, no, yung seafarer natin, and that you have to attach your signature. So both of the parties will attach their signature as concurrence on the agreement. And after that, yung na pong pagdo-document ng ating mga seafarers, no? So that's where POEA now again comes in the documenting the employment details of the seafarer. And the documentation of seafarers, hindi na po yan mahirap because we provided privileges to our licensed manning agencies for them to process, no, yung ating pong mga kontrata. No, sila mismo ay nakakapag-process 24/7. So hindi na po yan dumadaan sa POEA, no, na mano-mano namin tinitignan, but rather at the doorsteps of your agency, they may now process your documents, except for fishers and those watchlisted that it has to process by POEA dito sa opisina namin. And of course, as a product in the documentation of the seafarers, they have to provide, or they have to have the OEC, or the Overseas Employment Certificate, where it already connotes that you may now be deployed, because the OEC serves as an exit clearance for you to leave the Philippines. And of course, now once you have been issued the OEC, the manning agency has only 60 days, no, for you to be deployed. If in cases that within that 60 days ay hindi po kayo mapalis because of justifiable reasons, the manning agency, no, is mandated or directed to report that to the POEA, no, and they have to justify bakit hindi kayo na-deploy, no, and at the same time you have your concurrence na talagang hindi kayo nakaalis because of the justifiable reason, and that they have to request for the cancellation of that particular contract. But if there will be no problem at tuloy-tuloy po kayo na-deploy, hindi po doon nagtatapos ang responsibility ng inyong pong manning agency. Dahil nagsisimula lamang ang responsibility nila, because they still need to monitor, no, yung kanila pong deployed together with our polo and the employer. And at the same time, the manning agencies are mandated not to report to POA any maritime incidents. So dapat talaga kayong tinututukan. So yun po yung process flow ng ating pong accreditation and of principles and documentation of our seafarers, no? It may be simple as you see, pero very tedious po talaga yan, no? Pero wala po tayong magagawa dahil yun po yung ating proseso. Pero ang kagandahan naman po dyan, when you are already sa documentation of seafarers, hindi na po yan matagal. Actually, napakabilis na lamang, a matter of minutes, kaya na po kayong i-process ng inyo pong agency. Pag dito naman po sa POEA, it will just take us 4 hours or less to process your contracts. So hindi po yan 48 years. Yan po ay madali po naming napaprocess. No, alam po yan ni Ma'am Josie. No, si Ma'am Josie ay katuwang po natin, no, sa pag de-develop ng mga polisiya, no, kasi member din po siya ng MITC, yung Maritime Industry Tripartite Council. Siya po ay napaka-active member. So lahat po ng polisiyang inilalabas po natin ukol po sa industry, yan po ay dinadaan po natin sa MITC. Even yung ating pong employment contract, yung ating pong employment contract is a product of a tripartite council, and Ma'am Josie sits there, no? Yung grupo po niya, no? Sila po ay talagang may boses, no? At hindi po nila hinahayaan ng ating pong mga seafarers ay maalagay sa alanganin. So, yun po yung ating process. Okay? Now, for your information, there are 4 types of shipping principals or employers. O may 4 po tayong pwedeng maging employer ninyo o maging principal po ninyo. Either they are the ship owner, nagmamay-ari ng vessel, yung ship manager na binigyan ng authority ng ship owner na mag-manage ng ship, that is the ship manager, or the concessionaire or charterer. Yung concessionaire, no, for example sa cruise ship, no, meron po tayong mga different departments doon, no, na kung saan merong spa, parlor, hotel, meron ding ano pa mga departments doon maliban sa deck and engine. Meron ding what other departments, nakalimutan ko na, yung pasugalan, casino, no? So those departments may have a different principal or employer. Yung charterer, no, they will just be, engaging the particular vessel for a particular voyage, no, for a particular purpose. So they can also act as a principal. And of course, the crewing manager, no, who manages the crew for a particular vessel or ship. So we call it crewing manager. So they are the principals or your employer. As an important reminders, we would want to inform you guys that on the accreditation of principals, the principal may be accredited to maximum 3 licensed manning agencies. So hindi po kayo dapat magtaka ng isang employer ninyo o yung principal po ninyo ay may 3 pong licensed manning agencies. Pwede po yan. No? Ang nagkakaiba lamang po dyan, no? Kahit 3 po yung kanyang agency, pero dapat iba-iba po yung vessels na kanila pong hinahawakan o hinahandle, except for special type of ships. No? And of course, on the transfer of accreditation, the principal and ship may be transferred to another agency that's allowed, provided that such transfer shall not involve diminution of wages and benefits of the crew, and the transferee agency shall execute an affidavit of assumption on the full responsibility over all the crew deployed by the previous agency. Another that you have to remember on money claims, no, the money claims of transferor or the first agency arising out of its business relationship with the principal shall not deter this administration, no, from acting on the transfer of vessel if public interest so require. So if in cases na yung isang vessel ay kinukuha ng isang manning agency because of, business arising questions, no, o claims, wala pong pakialam doon ang POEA. But if it matters about the salary or wages of the seafarer, no, hindi po nabayaran yung kanilang SSS, yung kanilang PhilHealth, we will not be affecting the transfer of that particular ship. And of course, in the submission of documents, we are telling, no, there are also manning agencies who are listening to us. Of course, for us to completely process smoothly or fast processing of your documents, you have to comply and submit completely the requirements based on the checklist. And of course, the renewal accreditation of the principal must be submitted 1 month before the expiration. But at this time of pandemic, no, we are allowing the extension, even though if it's already expired, you just have to inform or write POA and request for the extension. That's based on the memorandum circular that we have issued recently. And of course, for the validity of accreditation of the principal, 4 years po yan, no? Unless sooner revoked or cancelled by the administration. And of course, we also provide a provisional accreditation which is valid for 90 days. If in cases the SPA and manning agreement cannot yet be verified by the POLO, tinatanggap pa rin din po natin yan because we have to facilitate the deployment of our seafarers. No, job opportunity din naman po yan. But they can be upgraded upon, the sooner or the soonest that they have submitted their deficiencies. Okay? So, accreditation of principals. We now talk about the contract processing facility. As I have said a while ago that, we have provided in a particular privilege to all manning agencies to have an in-house processing and that they process or document their own recruited seafarers. Sabi ko nga, madali, 24/7, wala hong problema yan. And that they issue as well the Overseas Employment Certificate in which they can purchase POEA, no? May mga pre-purchase manual OECs po tayo, or via the POPC, yung ating pong processing, online processing system, no? For seafarers or for the Seabased. Yung OEC po, print na lang po yan and automatically na-generate po via the in-house processing facility po ng ating pong mga manning agency. So wala pong kahirap-hirap po. But for the regular processing, we're in, as I've said, for the watch-listed seafarers and for the fishers, no, they need to get a clearance and that they have to comply with the requirements of the Seabased Center, no, and that they have to provide or send the request to POA and we'll be processing that. Our process cycle time, as I mentioned earlier, is just 4 hours. So wala po tayong problema doon. Napakabilis. No, less than nga eh. No, in an hour, we can do that. And of course, for the onboard processing, yung sinasabi po nating onboard processing, if in cases that there will be changes of your contracts, no, nag-increase po kayo ng sahod o na-extend po yung duration ng kontrata po ninyo, no, you will be processed by the POA. Yan po ay dinadala ng manning agencies nyo po dito to amend that particular contract earlier issued to you. Okay? So that's the contract processing. We have the period to deploy. I mentioned this a while ago, no, that once you have your OEC, within 60 days, dapat mapalis na po kayo ng inyong agency. This is a sample of the OEC, no, yung mga hindi pa po nakakakita, no, yung pong nasa baba na parang checked, that manual pre-purchased OEC, yung pong green one, yun po yung electronic issued by the OWA cashier or the POA cashier. Wala lang po tayong sample, no, yung pong OEC na piniprint na lang ng ating pong mga agencies via the POPC or their in-house facility. And of course, the most important part, no, of having the OEC as a privilege, a seafarer leaving to work abroad duly processed by the POEA and mere possession of the OEC, you are exempted, no, from paying the travel tax, airport terminal fee, and the income tax. So please, no, all seafarers before deployment, they have to have the Overseas Employment Certificate. Malinaw po yan. Recruitment costs and fees. This information, no, ay vital sa inyo po. No? Ano-ano po ba yung mga fees or the recruitment cost chargeable sa ating mga principals? Manning fee. No, hindi po yan dapat kinokolekta sa inyo. So the licensed manning agency shall charge from their principal a manning fee to cover services rendered in the recruitment and deployment of seafarers. Yung processing fee po, no, dapat din po yan ay sa principal o sa agency po, no. Those fees required for deployment such as the PEME, Ito po yung medical examination po ninyo, yung OWA, yung visa fee, employers flag stateship requirements, and employers required trainings and other requirements. Chargeable to the seafarer, of course, yung documentation cost, no, such as but not limited. Sa inyo naman talaga yung passport, personal nyo po yan. Yung SIRB po ninyo, yung NBI ninyo, and other clearances, birth certificate, academic records, no, and the PRC or test, not TESDA, but rather Marina's license, no, yan po ay chargeable po sa inyo, no, hindi po yan sa employer. However, no, if in cases that your employer would wanted to shoulder those, wala naman pong problema. Salamat po sa kanila at mabuhay po sila. Processing fees, hindi naman po ninyo binabayaran ito. Employer po yan nagbabayad. For the re-engage, 100 pesos, 200 for engage. For the Philippine registered vessels, seafarer, 100. And of course, for our cadets, it's also 100 pesos. For the membership fee for OWA, that's $25 or its peso equivalent. Now, I just wanted to inform you the difference between a re-engaged and engaged seafarer. Yung engaged seafarer, ibig sabihin, bago lang siya sa ahensya, newly recruited by the agency. No? Yung re-engaged, no, dati na siyang tao ng ahensya or the manning agency. At ang basis ng ating dati, the last contract process ay doon sa agency na yon. However, no, I'll give you an example to explain further about this. What if, no, ngayon, sa agency A ka nag-apply, bago, no, kadete ka doon, no? So ikaw ay engaged, no? Pagbalik mo, natapos mo yung kontrata mo, no? At ikaw ay magiging OS na sa agency A pa din, no? Ikaw ay magiging re-engaged na, no? Kasi dati ka ng seafarer ng agency mo. So ang babayaran na lang ng agency na processing fee is just 100 pesos to POEA. Now, lumipat ka ng agency, no? Nag-agency B ka. So what will now be your status kay agency B? Definitely engaged ka na naman, no? Natapos yung kontrata mo kay agency B, hindi ka natuwa at inoffer ka ng dati mong agency, si agency A, ngayon babalik ka ulit kay agency A. Anong status mo ngayon? Re-engage or engage? Sagot. Ang status mo na naman ay engage. So 200 pesos na naman ang babayaran ng iyong agency. So I would wanted to tell to our manning agencies, please don't shortchange our government. Kasi karamihan na mga pinoprocess nyo, lahat re-engage. Baka mamaya engage pala, no? Nagbabalik loob pala yung inyong dating seafarer. Hindi nyo alam, engage pala dapat ang treatment na sa kanila, not re-engage. Okay, malinaw po ba yon? And of course, for the membership of the OWA, this is already valid for 2 years, no? Valid na siya ng 2 years from the time that the OWA membership has been issued. So napakaganda po niyan. Yan po ay kaiba naman nakaraang mga taon dahil ang OWA membership po ng seafarer before is a per contract basis. So ngayon po is 2 years na. So regardless kung ilang kontrata o ilang deployment, basta sa loob ng 2 taon, valid po yung inyo pong membership. Kahit naglipat po kayo ng agency, no? Still the same thing. And I'm happy to tell you about our process cycle time. Now, for the accreditation, hindi po ganun katagalan, no? 5 working days. Renewal of accreditation, 4 working days. The enrollment of ship, 2 working days. Yung contract processing po natin dito sa POA, as I've said, it will just take 4 hours. However, at this point, no, at this time, kailangan din naman po nating i-adjust kasi skeletal force lang po ngayon ang POEA. So yung accreditation natin, it will take further days, no? Maybe 5 to 7 days, even the renewal of accreditation. But for the renewal of accreditation, I said, no, if in cases that you have already expired or expiring, you can request for extension. Okay? And for the enrollment of ship, no, it will take us siguro mga 2, 4, or 5 days. However, no, alam naman po ng ating po mga industriya that the Seabased is generous enough to accommodate. I know the seafarers are essential workers, and we know as well kung saan nanggagaling ang ating pong mga manning agencies. Kaya po ang aming pong opisina ay bukas. Lagi, maging nung nakaraang taon, we are trying to facilitate all the requests of our manning agencies, and we did not stop serving our licensed manning agencies. And Ma'am Josie knew that, and the group of Ma'am Josie knew that, and they're very generous to the group as well. Maraming salamat Ma'am Josie for the support and prayers that you're giving to my team. And of course, we're asking for the patience of everyone if in cases that there are delays, be kind, and nice to us, but definitely, or rest assured that we will be doing all our best to attend to the requirements of our seafarers and the manning agencies. Now we talk about the standard employment contract for seafarers. Siguro Ma'am Josie, I will just be making things fast in the discussion of standard employment contract, but this is very important sana na ma-discuss natin. But I do believe in the attendance of our workers in their PIDOS, the contract will be explained lengthily by your speakers. So papasadahan lang po natin ng mabilisan dahil limited po yung time na ibinigay po sa akin. Gustong ko nga sana 5 oras ang ibigay sa akin para isa-isa ho nating ma-discuss ito. Just joking you. Okay. So when we define a contract, a contract is a meeting of minds between two persons whereby one binds himself with respect to other to give something or render some service. That's based on Article 1305 of the Civil Code of the Philippines. In short, a contract may be made orally or in writing. Pero sa inyong mga seaman, ang kontrata nyo po ay in writing. At ang kontrata po natin ay standard. Meaning all of the seafarers, regardless whether they are officers or rating, they only have one standard terms and conditions, o yung tinatawag po nating employment contract. And the rationale why it must be in writing are for its validity, enforceability, and of course, for the convenience of the parties. So yan po yung ating pong definition ng ating pong kontrata. Okay? So what are the essential requisites of a valid contract? Tatlo po yan. Consent. There should be a consent. Must be free, voluntary, must be intelligently made, must be given by a capacitated person, and the parties intend to be bound. So that's the definition when we say consent. Another one, or subject matter. So when we say object or subject matter, we're talking about it should be specific, certain, within the commerce of man, must not be legally or physically impossible, and must not be contrary to law, public policy, public order, public moral, and good customs. And the last one, so the last essential requisite is the cost or consideration. So it should be equitable or just, must not be legally or physically impossible, and must not be in contrary to law, public policy, public order, public morals, and good customs. And I'm very happy to note that the standard employment contract of our seafarers all have these essential requisites to make it valid. So that's properly noted. Okay? Now, when we talk about the standard employment contract for seafarers, we're talking here of the POEA contract. And as a history, the first standard terms and conditions, or the STC or SEC for seafarers, was initially adopted on September 2000 by virtue of Dole Department Order Number 4 and POE Memorandum Circular Number 9, both series of 2000. And the amendment of the STC took effect November 2010 pursuant to POE Governing Board Resolution Number 9 and MC Number 10, both series of 2010. And when we talk about the standard employment contract for seafarers, as I've said, this refers to the POA prescribed contract containing the minimum terms and conditions of employment for the employment of Filipino seafarers on board ocean-going ships, which shall commence upon actual departure of the seafarer from the Philippine airport or seaport in the point of hire. And of course, crafted as a result of a tripartite agreement between the government, employers, and labor unions. As I've said a while ago, that the group of Ma'am Josie, no, Ma'am Josie Francisco, they're very active in their part, no, in the crafting of the standard employment contract. So thank you very much for the assistance, Ma'am Josie and her group, no, this and generosity being given to the group. And of course, no, the parties to the contract may improve the terms and conditions provided that the same shall be made in writing and appended to the contract. And at the same time, any addendum to the contract is subject to the approval of the POEA or this administration. Okay, so you may now see, as you can see in the slide, no, yung ating pong nilalaman ng standard employment contract po ninyo, yung SDC po natin, no, it starts with the definition of terms, then we have 33 sections, nandyan yung inyong duties, no, nandyan yung inyong commencement duration of contract, and so on and so forth, no. Another important provisions na nandyan ay yung inyong pong schedule of disability or impediment for injuries suffered and diseases, including occupational diseases or illness. So my assignment to you guys, as I've said, I cannot discuss lengthily about the standard employment contract because I do believe in the conduct of your pre-departure orientation seminar. This will be given to you. No, lahat yan ay ibibigay at bago kayo pumirma, di ba sabi ko dapat pinapaliwanag nung nilalaman ng kontrata ninyo, no, bago ninyo pirmahan. So this is the provisions of our contract. Of course, I would wanted also to inform you about the difference between the alati and beneficiary. In simple lingo, pag sinabi nating alati, ito yung dinedesignate ng seaman o didesignate ninyong tatanggap ng inyong allotment every month. No? Yung alati ba, pwede bang declare yung seaman na self-allotment or self-alati siya o wala siyang alati? Pwede po, no? Yan po ay karapatan ng isang seaman at ang magiging way po doon, yung allotment po niya ay ipapadala po ng siya, no, to his or her bank accounts. Doon po papasok because allotment, no, is being prescribed, no, to be done every month, no, so dapat ginagawa po yan. And the beneficiary, alam niyo naman po ibig nang sabihin yan, it refers to the person to whom the compensations and other benefits of the seafarer under the employment contract are due and payable. Mostly, yung mga beneficiary, pag single ka, yan po ay mga parents mo. No, pag may asawa ka, automatic yung asawa mo at mga anak mo. No, usually those are the beneficiaries of the seafarers. At yan po ay inyong idinideklara, no, even sa pagpipirma ninyo or sa online e-registration nyo, dinideclare nyo po doon kung sino yung beneficiary ninyo at sino po yung alati po ninyo. And at the same time sa OWA info sheet, no, nakalagay din po doon kung sino po yung mga beneficiaries ninyo. So hindi ho mahihirapan, no, ang ating pong mga government entities that will be handling about the compensations to be given to a particular seafarer. Okay, for the licensed manning agency, in a simple lingo, it refers to the to your manning agency given authority by the POA to recruit and to place Filipino seafarers, no, for a shipping plying international waters and for related maritime activities. So that's licensed manning agency. And when we say pre-existing illness, we are referring to, no, an illness shall be considered to be pre-existing if prior to the processing of your contract, any of the following conditions are present. Ano ba ito? Ba ang mga ito? Kung, no, pre-existing siya, the advice of a medical doctor or treatment was given for such continuing illness or condition, or the seafarer had been diagnosed and has knowledge of such an illness or condition but failed to disclose the same during the PEME, and such can be diagnosed during the PEME. Ito lang naman po ang pakiusap ko sa mga seaman po natin. Kung alam nyo po na may mga sakit na po kayo, no, dapat dinidisclose nyo po yan. No, hindi man nakikita ng doktor ninyo during your PEME, pero kung meron kayong knowledge already, you really have to be transparent and you have to fully disclose all those informations. Okay? And of course, seafarer's definition, refers to any person who is employed or engaged or work in any capacity on board a ship. No, this definition is an international definition. Even sa ating pong Maritime Labor Convention, yan din po ang definition niya. Sa ating pong POA rules, yan din po naman ang nakalagay na definition. Okay, the commencement or duration. As I mentioned earlier, it is upon actual departure of the seafarer from the Philippine airport or seaport in the point of hire and with a POA approved contract. So that's where the contract commences, actual departure. And it shall be effective until seafarer's date of arrival at the point of hire upon termination of his employment pursuant to Section 18 of this contract. No? Usually, ang point of hire natin is Manila, Philippines. Huh? And we have to understand that because most of the money agencies are here in Manila. Okay? And at the same time, if we talk about the duration, it's stated there for a period mutually agreed upon by the seafarer and the employer, but it should not exceed 12 months. And any extension of the contract shall be subject to mutual consent of both parties. Okay? That's very clear. The commencement and duration, if I'm not mistaken, is under the Section 2 of your STC. And in the standard, it also explains or cites the duties of the employer and the master. Nandyan to faithfully comply with the stipulated terms and conditions of the contract, to extend coverage of the seafarers, SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, no? Yan po ay dapat binabayaran ng ating pong mga employees. And another, no, to provide a seaworthy ship for the seafarer and take all reasonable precautions to prevent accident and injury to the crew. No, to observe the code of ethics for seafarers and conduct himself in the traditional decorum of the masters. Yan po ay ilan sa mga duties ng ating master. And the most important part of it is the duties of the seafarer as well. You know, you really have to put this, no, these duties, no, sa puso po natin, no, sa puso po ninyo, no, dapat ay familiar po kayo, no, dito para hindi po tayo magka-problema. And as you can read, no, in the presentation, meron po tayong tinatawag na Code of Discipline. Yan po ay nakalagay sa POA Rules and Regulations ng POEA. I hope that I can provide you a copy of this. But if not, no, this can be downloaded, no, the POA website, www.poa.gov.ph. So you can read yung mga code of ethics po ninyo. No, should a seafarer fail to comply with the code of ethics, there is a corresponding penalty. And most of the time, sila po ay napapasama sa list of the you might derogatory records or can no longer participate in the overseas employment program, which is being handled by our adjudication office. Definitely, we do not like that thing to happen to you. No, wag naman. So, dapat sumunod po tayo. Sabi nga, you have to be obedient to the lawful commands, whether you're master or whatever provisions of the law, no, na dapat yung sunod. And of course, you have to be diligent, maging masipag daw kayo, to conduct himself or yourself at all times in an orderly and respectful manner towards the shipmates, passengers, shippers, stevedores, and any other people. No, we really have to emulate a proper conduct or a good conduct. And of course, you really have to take care of your health. That's very important. Ha? Dapat tayo panatilihin nating malusog ang ating pangangatawan para tayo makapagtrabaho para sa buhay. Okay. Under also that standard employment contract, it stipulated the rights of the seafarers, no, to receive wages and benefits, to receive indemnity pay in case of sale of the vessel, to security of tenure. And I would wanted really to explain it to you, the definition of security of tenure. Hindi po panghabang buhay. No, kayo po ay paiba ang employer, paiba ang agency. So it cannot be yung alam po nating security of tenure. But what we are referring here is you are bound by a contract and that both parties should respect the contract. Now, if they say that you will be working 9 months, you should be working 9 months. No, and that should not be shortchanged. No, unless that there is a vital or valid reason for for lowering the duration of your contract. And of course, part of your rights is the salary for the unexpired portion of your contract, if in cases of the justifiable reason bakit hindi nagtuloy ang voyage o yung service nyo sa employer ninyo. Okay? Maliwanag po yan. And of course, again, rights of the employer to regulate all aspects of employment, including the hiring, work assignments, work methods, to control and direct management of the business, to transfer and sale of vessels, to discipline and terminate the services of employees in cases no, na kayo may pagkakasala, ha? To recover repatriation and replacement costs from the balance wages of the workers, plus of course, disciplinary action. Karapatan po yan ng employer. Obligations, of course, nakalagay din yan sa standards ninyo, yung mga allotment, overtime, holiday pay, yung mga facilities under the vessel, no, dapat meron yan, no, to comply with safety and standards, indemnity, to observe, no, the grievance procedure and due process. No, if you already observed, no, we're running out of time, I really have to make things fast. Because as I've said, I'm only given 30 minutes or 35 minutes. Thanks. I hope we have more time. Okay, wages. You know that you are entitled to receive your wages. No, every month. No, it should be monthly wages not later than 15 days. And the most important part of that, no, it should be equivalent to the exchange rate at the time. No, hindi po pwedeng hindi po bigay sa inyo yung tamang exchange rate, no, yung pagbibigay ng sweldo po ninyo. Of course, we have to remember the word salary does not include overtime and leave pay, no, and salary usually pertains to the basic wage or the basic salary of the seafarer. No, we have to remember that. And as you can see, no, there was a jurisprudence or an opinion made by the Supreme Court regarding a case between Claudio S. Yap and Tena Marist about the word salary, and it was clearly defined under that legal opinion. And of course, the compulsory disclosure by seafarer of past medical records. As I've said, this is very important. You really have to disclose or you have to tell about your condition. So concealment and non-disclosure of your past medical condition constitutes fraudulent misrepresentation. And of course, it will disqualify you as a seafarer from any compensation and benefits, and as well as it will be a ground, no, for the termination of your contract. So please, no, marami na po tayong nagiging problemang ganyan, no. Sana naman, no, yung ating mga bagong henerasyon, no, ay maging tapat, no, sa kanilang serbisyo at maging tapat sa kanilang sarili para magkaroon tayo ng matiwasay na pamumuhay at we can avoid, no, this type of problems in the future. Hours of work, it should not be more than 48 hours. 8 hours is the regular, okay? And the seafarer shall be allowed reasonable rest period in accordance with. For overtime, the seafarer shall be compensated, of course, for all work performed in excess of the regular 8 hours. No, and computing overtime, a fraction of the first hour work shall be considered as 1 full hour. And the first hour overtime, any work performed which is less than 30 minutes shall be considered as a half an hour, and more than 30 minutes shall be considered 1 full hour. Sana marami tayong oras so that I can give you computations, no, para mas lalo sana ninyong maintindihan. But I do believe, as I've said, probably in the discussions with your agency under your PDOS or prior to the signing of your contract, this will let. Of course, there will be an open overtime for the officers, guaranteed or fixed overtime for the ratings. No, yan po ay napakahalaga na nakapaloob sa ating standard contract. And also, no, sa kontrata po natin, yung ating pong mga Philippine holidays, you are also entitled for a double compensations, no? So it means that you will be working, you will be paid accordingly, no? And then yung New Year's Day natin, Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, Araw ng Kagitingan, Labor Day, Independence Day, National Heroes Day, All Saints Day, Bonifacio Day, Christmas Day, and the Rizal Day. The question there, if there are also declared other holidays other than this, will that be observed? No. Kung ano lamang po nakalagay dyan sa kontrata nyo, yun lamang po ang i-observe natin. Okay? Those are the regular holidays. Emergency duty. If in cases of emergency, no overtime work and pay shall be considered for such emergency service or for fireboat or emergency drill for the safety of the ship, persons on board or cargo. Definitely, no? Pag yan ay emergency, kailangan yung tumulong. No? Hindi naman kailangan, bayaran nyo bago ako tumulong, no, sa pagsugpo ng emergency situation or case. But of course, no, after, no, if after that drill or emergency, you are also entitled to for a rest, no, a complete rest that should be provided by your master. Leave pay, of course, ang kagandahan ho ha, ang Maritime Labor Convention, ang ating pong leave pay is only equivalent to 2 and 1/2. No, for our standard employment contract, you are entitled for 4 and 1/2. And most of the time na amin pong napipirmahan dito sa POEA, more than the 4 and 1/2, no, especially if they're under the CBA. No more than 5, 8 days, 11 days, may mga ganun po tayo. But our minimum leave pay is 4.5 days. Grievance mechanism is very important. We have to remember this. If in cases that you have grievance or any untoward incidents, no, that needs to be heard or whatever, it is your right, no, to undergo a grievance machinery system, no, and the seafarer shall make his grievance in writing and in an orderly manner, and shall choose a time when his complaint or grievance can be properly heard. No, I hope that we have a separate discussions about grievance machine. Try to read about this provision of your contract. Okay? Ang kahalagahan lang dito, you have to be heard. That's the most important thing. No, dapat ikaw ay mapakinggan, no, yung inyong sinasaloob. No, kung ikaw man ay na illegally dismissed, ikaw ay pinapaalis, magrason ka kung bakit, no, at sasabihin sa iyo kung bakit, no, at dapat ay merong makikinig, o kung meron ka namang inirereklamo, no, o may mga violations ka nakikita, no, pwede mo naman yan i-elevate under the grievance mechanism. Okay? And of course, no, the aggrieved seafarer whose employment is covered by an existing CBA, you can also elevate any unsatisfactory resolution of your grievance to the voluntary arbitration as agreed upon under that particular CBA. No, usually, ang nangyayari na po dito, if in cases that you have money claims, no, yan po ay dinudulog nyo na po sa NLRC, no, o dili kaya sa NCMB. No, kung under po siya ng CBA, pinapakinggan naman po kayo dyan. Kung administrative po yung case, no, nagpa-file po kayo ng administrative complaints against your principal or your agency to the POEA. At yan naman po ipapakinggan po natin. Termination of employment contract, that's section 18, no, under the standards. Anytime your contract can be terminated if warranted or may talagang basis or reason, no? But of course, in a general scenario po natin, ang kontrata po dapat nasusunod po lagi. Okay? Due process in termination cases, definitely, as we are talking about the grievance machinery later on, part of the grievance, the essence of grievance is the due process, no? Of whatever, whether termination of cases or any simple cases that has to be elevated under the grievance machinery. Okay. Of course, we also have the basic principle in the termination of cases. As I've said, we have already legal jurisprudence under no, as stipulated in the Supreme Court. It's very good, no, to read about these cases, no, for the guidance of everybody, not just for the worker or even for our manning agencies. Non-compliance with due process where a valid cause for dismissal exists. Now, a valid dismissal requires both of a valid cause and adherence to the valid procedure. There should be at least 2 written notices before termination. First, inform the employee of the particular acts that may cause dismissal, and the second one, inform the employee of the employer's decision. Aside from the notice requirements, the employee must also be given an opportunity to be heard. No, I've been repeating yung opportunity to be heard, no, earlier in. Okay, repatriation, you are no, you have the rights not to be repatriated. So if the ship is outside the Philippines upon the expiration of the contract, the seafarer shall continue his service on board until the ship's arrival at a convenient port, and or after arrival of the replacement crew, provided that in any case the continuance of such service shall not exceed 3 months. And of course, the seafarer shall be entitled to earn wages and benefit as provided.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it seems that we're having technical problems again. So for now, um, if you have any questions again,
and of course, may indemnity pay din yan na 1 month, no? Yun ang aking pagkakaalam dyan. Okay? Another, this is what I'm talking about 3 months before the expiration. So the seafarer shall be paid all his earned wages. In addition, the seafarer shall also be paid his leave pay for the entire contract period plus a termination pay equivalent to 1 month of his basic pay. Okay? If discharged at the port abroad for any reason, meron din po tayong stipulated na nasa contract. If discharged for any just cause, the employer shall have the right to recover the cost of his replacement and repatriation from the seafarer's wages and other earnings. So please be very careful, my dear seafarers, that you should not be the cause of your discharge. Because if that is the case, as I've said, no, ang principal ninyo or agency has the right to recover the cost against you. No, kokolektahin po sa inyo. If the seafarer requests for early termination of the contract, you are liable for your repatriation costs. Remember that. And the employer may, in case of compassionate grounds, assume the transportation cost of the seafarer's replacement. Sana po, no, laging ganito ng ating pong mga employer ay generous, no, and compassionate to our seafarers, that they will really be, shouldering already the transportation cost of the replacement of the seafarer who requests for early termination. Okay? And we have a special note here that the seafarer shall report to the manning agency within the 72 hours upon arrival at the point of hire. The question now is, under this pandemic, are we observing this? Definitely, no, we cannot observe the 72 hours because of the quarantine or the quarantine that a seafarer must undergo. So, paano pa siya makakapag-comply to report within 72 hours? So, the manning agency may have an alternative way to ensure and to check, no, the medical situations of your seafarers upon their arrival or after they finish their quarantine period. If the seafarer delays or makes detour or proceed to a destination other than to the travel itinerary arranged by the employer to the point of hire, the employment of the seafarer will be considered terminated at the time the seafarer signs off the ship, and all additional expenses shall be now be charged under the account of the seafarer. But the agency should report this in case that the seafarer, planned or intend to detour or will not directly go home, but rather pupunta ba daw siya sa pamilya na nasa US, o magsi-Singapore pa sila, o mag-Hong Kong pa sila. So hindi nasunod yung itinerary na ibinigay ni principal o ni agency. At ang ating pong end of contract, sinasabi natin upon arrival at the point of hire. So ano yon? Hindi pa ba natapos yung kontrata dahil hindi pa kayo nakarating sa Pilipinas? Hindi po. Tapos na po dahil kayo po ang may kagustuhan nun. So at the time that the seafarer signs off the ship, the contract ends. And that, as I've said, it is the responsibility of the agency to report that to the POEA. Okay? So that will be properly recorded. And compensation and benefits for injury or illness, definitely there is. No, there is a corresponding benefit and compensation if in cases that there will be a work-related injury or illness. I just wanted you to go over this compensation and benefits because these are vital that you really have to learn. No, ito yung mga sickness allowance, no, yung ating period within which the seafarer shall be entitled to his sickness pay, no, which shall not exceed 120 days, no. Nandyan po sa kontrata nyo po yan. In the course of the treatment, the seafarer shall also report regularly to the company-designated physician, specifically on the dates as prescribed by the company-designated physician and agreed to by the seafarer. Failure of the seafarer to comply with the mandatory reporting requirement shall result in his forfeiture of the right to claim the above benefits. And also the most important part, which we still have to find ways on how we really have to observe this. No, if a doctor appointed by the seafarer disagrees with assessment, a third doctor may be agreed jointly between the employer and the seafarer. So the third doctor's decision shall be final and binding on both parties. And I think, no, Ma'am Josie, we really have to discuss about this third doctor's decision on how we will really be implementing this. Okay? And of course, the illness not listed in Section 32 of this contract or under the STC are disputably presumed as work-related. Okay, there is also what we call a permanent total or partial disability under Section 32, and the computation of the benefits should also be based sa kontrata natin, based on the disability gradings. So, nandun din po yan. All-inclusive claims for compulsory insurance coverage under RA 10022. So the amount paid to the seafarer due to accident or natural death or permanent total disablement by virtue of the provisions of RA 8042 as amended by RA 10022 and its implementing rules and regulations shall form part of and shall be deducted from the total amount that the seafarer is determined to be finally entitled to under this contract. No, in short, kasi minsan may nagtatanong, actually kanina nga lang yung aming regional office, region 2, no, yung region 2 namin, tinatanong, yung bang RA 8042 daw ba ay kaiba yung nakalagay sa standard contract po natin? Hindi po. No, ang mananaig po yung ating pong standard contract, which is for death compensation is $50,000 US dollars. No, kasama na po yun, kapaloob na po yun yung RA 10022 natin. Kung i-implement yung 10022, $10,000 US dollars and the remaining, no, of the 50,000, no, kukunin po doon. At ang total pa rin naman noon is $50,000 US dollars. No, dapat hindi po tayo malito, no, tungkol dito. Okay? Work-related death of the seafarer during the term of his contract under the employment contract is $50,000 US dollars, $7,000 US dollars to each child under the age of 21 but not exceeding 4 children. So yung pong seaman, may 4 siyang anak below 21, no, entitled po sila 7,000 each. And of course, 1,000 as a burial expense. Of course, exchange rate prevailing during the time of payment. Okay? We also have compensation if in cases nagkaroon ng giyera, no? So where death is caused by a warlike activity while sailing within a declared war zone or war base, the compensation payable shall be doubled. The employer shall undertake appropriate war zone insurance coverage for this purpose. Okay? And of course, other liabilities, nandyan din po yan, yung mga transport of the remains and personal effects. Yan po ay bibigay din ng ating pong insurance, or the principal should find ways to really implement this particular provision of the... Okay. No compensation and benefit shall be payable in respect of any injury, incapacity, disability, or death of the seafarer resulting from his willful or criminal act or intentional breach of his duties. I would wanted to emphasize that. No, ito yung mga sinasabing, you know, wag naman sana, no, nagpakamatay daw, yung mga ganon, nag-suicide, no, o kaya sinadya yung pagkakasakit. No, wag naman. No, you should not be doing that. And of course, a seafarer who knowingly conceals a pre-existing illness or condition in the pre-employment medical examination shall be disqualified from any compensation and benefits. As I've said, you really have to fully disclose your medical conditions so that you will be spared, no, if in cases na magkaroon tayo ng problema or usapin tungkol sa medical situation po natin. Okay? Of course, the theory of aggravation, I would wanted to share it to you. as I've said, no, the compensability of an ailment does not depend on whether the injury or disease was pre-existing at the time of the employment, but rather if the disease or injury is work-related or aggravated his condition. This is again, no, a decision made by the Supreme Court against more maritime agency, NLRC, May 13, 1999. Okay. At the same time, ailment contracted prior to employment is still compensable if it is the approximate cause of death. Now, even assuming that the ailment of the worker was contracted prior to his employment, this still would not deprive him of compensation benefit. For what matter is that his work had contributed even a small degree to the development of the disease and in bringing about his eventual death. Neither it is necessary in order to recover compensation that the employee must have been in perfect health at the time he contracted the disease. A worker brings with him possible infirmities in the course of his employment, and while the employer is not the insurer of the health of the employees, he takes them as he finds them. Now, this is a very good, which is advantageous to our seafarers. When death directly attributable to the seaman, not compensable. So when the death of the seaman resulted from a deliberate or willful act on his own life, and it's not directly attributable to the seaman, such death is not compensable. Now we have to remember that. No doubt, a case of suicide is covered by this provision. Death of seafarer who was killed in transit while being repatriated is compensable. In this case, a seafarer who was suffering from a mental disorder, was shot when he attempted to attack a policeman while at a stopover in Bangkok, Thailand. He was already repatriated and was heading to Manila when the incident occurred. So the court finding that the death was not due to his willful act, and noting that the responsibility of the employer is to see to it that the seafarer is duly repatriated to the point of hiring, ruled that the seafarer death is compensable. So the termination of employment occurs when the seafarer signs off from the vessel and arrives at the point of hire. And of course, basahin nyo na lamang po, another samples of our disability compensations. Ngayon po, ang gaganda pong mga jurisprudence o mga naisulat po na mga resolutions sa mga cases. Napakagandang pag-usapan at malaman po natin. And of course, as an essential medical documentations, nandyan po yung PEME ninyo, illness or accident report on board the vessel, and 3 working days reportorial requirement upon arrival in the Philippines. Now, you have to remember that, my dear seafarers, that those are vital medical documents. Okay, also under the standard employment contract are the occupational diseases. Nandyan po yan, yung mga different diseases which are considered occupational, So, basahin na lang po ninyo, hindi po natin isa-isahin yan. And at the same time, as we mentioned earlier as well, that there's also a schedule of disability allowance. May mga per grade po tayo, grade 1 to grade 14. Yung base rate po natin is the $50,000 US dollars. If in cases 120% yung i-grant po ninyo times the 50%, so that will become 60,000 equivalent. So yan po, yung mga equivalent natin for your information. Okay, same is true. We have the schedule of disability impediment for injuries. Under section 2, nakalagay na po dyan yung pay grade. Para hindi na po tayo magkaroon ng problema. And I hope also our arbitrators, yung ating mga hearing officers, we really comply kung ano po nasusulat sa ating standard employment contract. Kung grade 1 yan, dapat grade 1. Ang susundin, kung grade 9, dapat sundin grade 9. Okay? And of course, under the COVID-19 pandemic, kung ano ba yung naging response natin, I would like to tell you or inform you, and I'm proud to say that we have tried to enhance online transactions for the continuous and safe services of everyone. We have the Seabased e-contract system, which is upgraded naging POPSI siya. We have the online submission and drop-box system during the community quarantine, or even now, no, we are adopting this no under the enhanced community quarantine ECQ. We are doing, or we have did, or we have done, no, or we will be doing. Nandyan yung POPSI na sinasabi natin kanina, no? I hope that your manning agencies will also orient you about the POPSI. But definitely the manning agencies has a responsibility over the usage of this one. No, it's the in-house processing facility that we have provided to them. No, it's an online facility to document the employment contracts of the seafarers. And of course, no, aside from the POPSI, we've mentioned about the drop-box system. No, hindi na ho natin wala na pong face-to-face transactions, but we rather provide them to just to drop box to quarantine also the documents, and we will be processing that immediately. Okay. Continuous monitoring of labor markets, land-based and sea-based for labor market information. We have already issued several advisories no about the different labor markets. I hope that you visit our website to read, kasi yung iba yan ay per country yung aming po mga advisories. And at the same time, continuous monitoring of manning agency reports on the situation of deployed seafarers. As I've said, this is a mandatory responsibility of the manning agencies to report any maritime incidents to the POA. ASAP, no, immediate po yan. Extension of validity of OECs. If in cases nag-expire OECs, we have issued no para po ma-facilitate natin yung deployment po ninyo. Extension of contracts while seafarer could not disembark. So under section 19, umaabot po siya ng up to 15 months. No, we do allow that. No, onboard facilitate po natin yan. No, yung extension of validity of OECs, what you just have to do is during the lockdowns or during the quarantine, nag-expire yung OEC ninyo, no need to amend or change the OEC, you can still use that. What you just have to do is to proceed to our Labor Assistance Center, and they will validate the expired OECs. So no need to issue another one. And of course, no, for those who have requested for extension or will be requesting for an extension of the accreditation of their employer or principal, will be giving them up to September 30, 2021 validity. Whether that will be again mapapalawig pa ba ulit after September 30, yan po ay pagdidibatihan po muna ulit natin. Okay? Withdrawal of agency escrow deposits, we also provided that dahil alam namin no maraming po naapektuhan lalo-lalo sa land-based agency natin, nag-down talaga yung kanilang deployments compared sa sea-based natin na patuloy pa din naman no yung kanila pong business operations, but for the land-based they need no to some financial assistance, so we allow the withdrawal of their escrow deposits. And of course, our licensing also allows the extension of the validity of the license of the agency. So ganun po yung ginagawa natin. These are all in conformance no with with the green lane where POA is one of the signatories, no. The green lane where we have to facilitate the smooth deployment of our seafarers. Memorandum Circular MCs to facilitate application of seafarers unemployment insurance with the social security system. We also issued that. Okay? O ano pa mga ginagawa namin? Yung interim guidelines natin for the deployment and repatriation of Filipino seafarers during the pandemic. That's under POA Resolution number 13. No? Diyan. Prioritization of vaccination of seafarers. No, this is very important that you have to know, since we accept the government recognizes that you are an essential workers, seafarers. Instead of A3, you are now A1. Because as I've said, you are an essential worker. So there is also a special tripartite committee of MLC 2006 which issued a resolution supporting the prioritization of vaccination of seafarers, noting that seafarers are key workers. This is also very important, response of the government with regard to the ratification of Convention 188, an ILO Work in Fishing Convention 2007. So there's already a Dole Administrative Order number 65 creating a technical working group to study and lobby for the ratification for this Convention 188. Para to naman sa ating pong mga fishers, ikabubuti ng ating pong mga fishermen. And of course, very important response during this pandemic is the continuous collaboration of the administration with other government agencies and stakeholders. Of course, may mga IATF resolutions, joint circular for the Seafarers Green Lane, as I've said, that POA is one of the signatories where we are, challenged, to really provide a fast and smooth facilitation on the documentation of the seafarers' contracts and other matters that pertains to their deployments. Maritime Industry Tripartite Council endorsement for the inclusion of the Philippines in the ILO Convention 185 for seafarers identity document. Tayo ang nanguna diyan, meaning ang Pilipinas ang nanguna sa paghiling sa ILO na i-ratifika o i-recognize yung ating pong seafarers identity documents. Isa po ang POEA, at ang ating pong partner diyan, ang ating pong kaibigan na si Miss Josie and the team ng ating pong industry, where we really work very hard to lobby for the recognition. Of course, ang ating pong Marina ang nanguna sa discussions po na yan. Okay? And of course, the continuous adaptation of online services during the community quarantine. There will be forthcoming advisories on the operations of the POA pre-employment. Actually, ginawa ko itong presentation isang araw. May ginawa na po kami advisories already. Ilalabas po namin within the day. Now, what will be done for the period August 6 to 20. So, yun po ay ibig sabihin yung service po na ipoprovide natin ay tuloy-tuloy na serbisyo para po sa ating po mga seafarers in the mining industry. Okay? Realizing the vision for a crew change hub. We wish, these are our prospects. Realizing the vision for a crew change hub Philippines through government and business sector partnerships. Sana na maging crew hub na itong Pilipinas. Tuloy-tuloy na sana na dito na mag-crew change. And that will really create an impact to the whole society or to the whole country. Yun ang prayer natin. And of course, maximizing the gains on seafarers as essential global workers, minimizing health risks of seafarers through best practice initiatives by the private sector, mining agencies on pre-embarkation protocols, and enabling policies for market re-entry, niching for Filipino seafarers. These are our prospects. Okay? And another prospects that we will be doing before the end of the year, I hope that we will be amending, or finalizing the review of the standard terms and conditions. So, Ma'am Josie, I hope that in our meeting on Monday, there will be an update on the review of our standard employment contract. Okay? I think this is the last slide. So try to connect with us via Facebook, via Twitter, and of course, we have our website, www.poa.gov.ph. I would wanted each one really to visit our website. Lahat po ng mga issuances namin, informations nandoon po nakalagay. Even yung pinag-uusapan po natin ngayon, nakalagay din po doon. So, wala pong rason para hindi po ninyo makuha ang mga impormasyon o mahalagang impormasyon tungkol po sa POA dahil lahat po ay nakalagay naman po sa ating pong online services. Okay? Or online connectivity.